again and welcome to the channel. My name is Annie and this is my creative detour. I hope you're all doing well and are having a great week. I've had a good week. I've had a little bit of time to play and do some experimenting, which is always fun. Today we're going on with something a little bit new. I've not ever made these before and I've not seen a lot of people doing them. Nothing's new under the sun, is it? So there's probably some people have made these before, but this is the first time that I've made them or seen them. I kind of stumbled upon it when I was cleaning out a little bit. Now my husband and I were doing a little bit of tidying up and I found that I had purchased these tab divider sets and they go into a planner from Kiki K. They're a B6 size and they're a plastic, quite thick actually, probably a 1/2 millimeter thick, so they're quite sturdy, you can hear them, and they're smooth on one side and got a little bit of a texture on the other. I think it's got 11 dividers in it. When I spotted them when I was tidying up, I thought, I should do something with that. So I suppose this is a little bit of one of those stash busters where I'm using something that I didn't know that I had and found when I was tidying up, and I'm turning it into something. Now it does have some printing on it that can't come off. My husband tried to get it off with some different products and was not able to get it off, so I decided to cut it off. But what I'm making is some translucent journaling cards. Now you can see here that you can see my hand under it. I have left some of the clear plastic visible. So you can see here on my desk that when it's on my desk you can see the timber through it, and then when it's on the paper you can see the paper through it. And when you turn it over you can see that there is some spots that you can journal on, and that's the bit where I have glued things on. And you can also see that I have stamped some images on it as well. So that's what we're making today, journaling cards for you to pop it into a journal. But you could turn these into anything. They could be tags, they could be pages in your journal, because this divider has punched holes in it. Or you could turn it into your actual journal cover. Now you might be thinking, well, that's great, Annie, but I can't get these and Kiki K doesn't sell them anymore anyway. But I'm sure that you can get different translucent covers or dividers in stationery shops or in places like Daiso or on Temu. And I know also that sometimes when you get a ringed binder that has plastic sleeves in it, they sometimes have these covers on the front of them. So I'm sure that if you started looking for them, you could harvest them from different places. And I'm using it mainly as a stash buster because, as you can see, I purchased it on sale. It was originally $18 and I got it for $2, and I thought I should do something with those. So that's what we're making today, some journaling cards. I may do some other things with them down the track. And I've made 5, so you've seen one of them. I've got 4 more to show you at the end, and we're going to do one on camera today together. So let me get set up and I'll show you what my materials are and what products I use and a few little tricks and things that I learned along the way. All right, I'll see you in a moment. Okay, I've got a box of bits and I'm using StazOn because I'm stamping on plastic. So it's a solvent ink and it sets very quickly actually, and the only downside is that it stains your stamps. I've got a few tools which we'll put to the side, and I have a piece of white paper. I've cut down my piece of translucent plastic and I'll tell you the measurements of it actually. It is 11 centimeters wide, which is 4 3/8 in inches, and it is 16.4 centimeters, which is just under 6.5 inches. So it could be any size that you want to make it. This is the size that it cuts down to once I cut off this tab here. So I cut off the tab cut off the holes and I cut off the writing that's on the bottom, and you can see the writing there. But if I'd wanted to keep the holes on it, if I was putting it into a ring binder, I would have been able to make it a little bit wider. But you could do whatever size you want for whatever project you're doing. You can see here that I have pulled out an image that I'm wanting to use, and I have some stamped palm trees, and that's so that I can use them as placement. So they're going to guide where I'm going to stamp, because I need to stamp on the smooth side of the plastic. Now, like I said, the plastic has a smooth side and it has a rougher side. So I'm going to stamp onto the smooth side, but I'm also going to glue the smooth side down, which means that whatever I'm stamping on the smooth side will be in reverse of what I'm wanting to do. So I kind of need to have a bit of an idea of where I'm putting the information, and that's why I've got these stamped. The first thing I need to do is I need to glue a piece of blank paper onto the back of my image, and that's so that when I turn over the card, you'll see white. Now, on some of the examples that I've got, I forgot to do that. So this is one of those steps that I went, I needed to do that before I fussy cut or before I cut the image. So let's do that. I'm just going to use glue stick and glue that together. I hope everyone's doing well and is having a good week. I worked earlier in the week, but then I've had a few days off, which has been nice, and I've been doing a little bit of craft, also doing a little bit of planning for us going back to Europe. We're going back to visit our son at the end of the year. He's getting married, and we're super excited about that. And my daughter and granddaughter took me out shopping the other day, and I managed to get the dress that I'm wearing to the wedding, which is good. It's one of those jobs that you kind of think, oh, I've got to sort that out because I need to have a plan. So I'm thrilled about that, and my granddaughter loves it because it's a little bit sparklier than what I normally would wear. But it is an evening wedding, so the sparkles are appropriate. So while that's just setting, I'll talk about the images. I tried a few different images and some worked better than others, but what I was looking for was something in the foreground that was quite dominant, that if I wanted to cut around it, I could. I found that landscape shots seemed to work the best. I did play a little bit with, some still life, which I think would work as well. But for one to do that's fairly easy, if you look for something that has a portion of something that is easy to stamp on and that gives you an opportunity to take out some of the information. So what we're going to do here is I'm actually going to tear here. Now what I could do is I could tear off the horizon line here, or I could cut out the water and leave the water empty, and then put the horizon line and the clouds back in and then leave a piece out. But I actually quite like the water. I think that it gives it context. So I think that it's a matter of playing with your images a little bit and just learning along the way. Because my piece of plastic is only a certain width, I need to work out where I want to position it and what's the important information. And I'm going to look at proportion as well. So you can see you have a very strong line here. This horizon line is very strong. So I want to either put that at 2/3 in the view or 1/3 in the view. Now 2/3 would put it up too high. So if it was 2/3 in the view, 2/3 under the horizon, we're off the page. So it needs to sit around about 1/3. So I'm looking at it going, that's 1/3, that's 1/3, that's 1/3. So 2/3 above the horizon line and 1/3 under is where I'm going to pitch it. And I also want to look for opportunities to stamp some other information onto it, because the whole point is that we're creating something of our own. I'm creating my own piece of artwork from this photographer's beautiful photo. So I went looking and found the palm trees that are going to work with the scale, and I'm going to stamp them so that they're sitting around about there, and I'll have them as if they're coming out of the foreground bushes. And then I'm also going to stamp some birds in the sky. Now, I am only stamping with StazOn. I don't have any other colours in StazOn. I only have black. And I did try the archival, but unfortunately the archival, even when I left it, it didn't dry completely. It smudged a little bit. And I'll show you on one of them where it did that. So I ditched the archival, thought no, I'll just stick to StazOn. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to round the corners of my plastic, and I'll do that with my crocodile. I'm just doing a 1/4 inch. This tool copes with the thickness of the plastic really well. I haven't tried it with my little one. I think that it might struggle a bit. And I'm also going to start tearing my paper. Let's tear along our cloud line. So here we go. Now when you're tearing, I'm wanting to get the white edge as if it's starting to show a little bit of cloud. So I'm going to tear this way so that it leaves the white edge on it. That's pretty good. And now I can separate it a bit. I'm going to tear another piece that leaves a little bit of blank space in it. Now you could tear it from the top. I might tear it around about here. Let's do this side because we want the white edge. We'll take that piece off. We might use that in a moment. Tear this side so that we get a white edge on that. Have a look at that. It doesn't have to be an accurate line. It might actually look better if it's not. Yes, I'm liking the gap being a little bit different, and we'll slide in a little bit of this information here, I think, just to get some of that brightness in. Okay, let me put a piece of paper under it so you can see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my image there. I'm going to push this up to the top a little bit, and let's taper this so that it reads a little bit better, and then we'll have a little piece coming in like that. Alright, so that's my plan of what it's going to look like, and we're going to have this portion here as blank space so that you can see through it. Okay, so the next thing is I need to work out, before I glue anything, where I'm going to stamp my information. So I have pre-stamped out, like I said, some little trees, and I'm wanting to put them here like this, but when I stamp them they'll be the other way around, but at the moment we'll just put them there like that. And I think that on top of each other's okay. But what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want them to hide behind the bush. I don't want that to be in the foreground. So you can see that I'm just going to look at where the heights are going to be. And then I'm going to want to put a little piece of tape on so that I get a little bit of a better idea of where I need to mask off on the other side. Now, like I said, they're going to be the other way around. So I'm going to flip them over so that I can see them from this side. And let me just check that I've got the smooth side at the back. Yes, I do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tear a little piece of paper just to get the shape of the bush so that I can mask it off. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It can just be, you know, close to it. Maybe this piece might be better. So I'm going to stick that on with some sticky tape. And I'm going to stick on my trees because that's going to show me approximately where I need to stamp now on this side. And I'll pop these to the side so we don't get them damaged. And then I'm going to mask here so that when I stamp, the trees are a little bit hidden. So let's stick that on this side as well. I know that it might be sounding a little bit complicated, but it's just so that I'm masking where this bush is, so that the trees sit behind the bush, not right in the foreground. Okay, and now we can stamp with our stays on. And I'm okay about the trees overlapping each other. They are in silhouette, so that doesn't really matter. I do want it to be a nice juicy coating. And you can see that I needed to turn my trees upside down. And the only way I learnt that was by doing some. I realised that I'd stamped one back to front on one of the others. It's okay to do a few trials and tests. There we go. Now I'm going to just let that dry. While it's drying, I'll clean up this stamp so the stays on doesn't stain it too much, and I'll come back to you. Okay, that's almost dry. It's got a few glassy bits on it still, so this is when I probably am getting a little bit impatient and thinking the camera's going. Let's move on, but hopefully I won't smudge it. So I'll just peel that off, all that masking, and you can see that now the bases of the trees are irregular, as if they're going to sit into the back of the bush. Oh, that worked out reasonably well. Some of the trees are above that tear, which is fine. And then we're going to position this piece here and our top bit up here. Now what we also need to do is stamp on a few birds. Now the stamps that I'm using, this one here with the palm trees was a Kaisercraft stamp. You can see that I got it for $2 on clearance, and that's where I got those palm trees from. And my little birds that are in flight, I'm doing a Stampin' Up stamp, and it's Let's Set Sail, and I think it's retired. Now I need to decide where I want my birds. I think we want a few over here, as if they're flying off the page. So I've got some height of some information here. I think we'll have some going off the page, which means that when I turn it over, I need to do them about here. So I will stamp those and get them the right way around, Annie. You can tell that I've done that before. Stamped my birds the wrong way around. And some there. Oh, I messed that one up. And a couple going off. Now, a fine Sharpie is your friend with this project. If any of your birds are looking a little bit dodgy, like that one I didn't do properly, just get a fine tip Sharpie and tweak it. And I think I want one just there. All right, we'll let that dry. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Annie, why don't you just stamp on the paper? And I could do that, but I'd need to do it with something permanent, and I tried stamping on the paper, and then when I put the glue on it, it did smudge it just ever so slightly, and so I don't want to risk that happening because I'm going to put the glue on the face of the image. So that's the only downside of making sure that it's dry. So now let's start gluing, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the bottom first, and just make sure the back of your plastic is clean and pop your glue onto the face of your image. Now what I found is that the glue dries and absorbs into the paper. It doesn't obviously absorb into the plastic, but it does leave a few lines. So what I ended up doing was I ended up doing the stroke of the glue where it made sense to the image. So I'm going to try and do it sideways so that it looks like it's the clouds. And I'm giving an even coverage and wiping it smooth with the top of the glue stick. Now, I did try double-sided tape and it obscured the view too much. And I found that if you put too much glue on, then that's problematic as well. So don't overload the glue, just enough. And you can see that I've kept it all in a sideways motion. And I'm going to glue this one on and get my trees in the right spot. So just give that a really good burnish because you want that glue to really spread evenly. And it is going to show a little bit, but when it dries fairly well. Still can see it slightly. So you can sort of see the glue a little bit, but not a lot. And I'm just going to cut off that so that I don't get glue everywhere, because obviously I've got glue on the face of this. So just cut around the edge of the plastic and get rid of that excess. Yeah, so like I said, I tried double-sided sheet, but I didn't like that it obscured the view so much. I found that the glue stick works the best. I'm using Boss Stick, so I'm using a good brand, and I'm really trying to push that image down and get it to sit really evenly, because the more that it sort of sits down, you'll see that it evens out that glue a little bit better. And you can also see that now I've got white on the back so that it can become a journaling spot. I think we want it about there. Some glue on that. So once again, I'm putting it on so that it looks as if it's lines in the clouds, so that if it does show, it sort of makes sense to the composition. You might be thinking, Annie, why not just do it with paper? Why use the plastic sheets? Well, I've got them in my stash and they need using, and it's a different texture. It's a different material. It feels different in the hand. You know, it's interesting. I'm really burnishing that down, and obviously the glue stick takes a little bit of time to dry, and by the time the next day came, I did mine and left them overnight. They were very well stuck on. They didn't peel off. They've been fine. I'm just wiping off a little bit of glue residue, and then we'll do the last one. We might just tear this so that we get a little bit more of the blue before we stick this one on. I want a little bit more of the blue in the sky at the top. And same thing, I'm going to put it on and smooth it out so that it's got a horizontal line on it. Give it a good burnish, and I'll cut off that excess so I don't get glue everywhere. There we go, that's looking nice, isn't it? And you can see my hand through it. And it's got a little bit of a story, doesn't it? And I'll bring it up close for you to see. You can see the glue a little bit behind the perspex. It's just a variation in darkness. It's dark and light. But it does settle. It does dry back a bit once that glue absorbs into the paper. And it does take a few hours for it to sort of dry off a bit. It doesn't go away completely, but it's pretty good. Now, I do have a sentiment to go on, and it's just press pause. And I've clicked it out of my Dymo machine, and I just felt that this was one of those scenes that you just get to the end of the day, or you're on a holiday or something, and you just exhale. You just go, ah, and so you just want to press pause on the day. So I'm going to put that on there, and I think that it's too long, so I might cut it and just stick it down the bottom, and I'm not going to overwork it. I'm going to let the composition carry the information. So there we go. I've just put a little sentiment that I've spelled out. It says just press pause, and it's exactly what you would want to do if you were sitting looking at that sunset with the birds flying over, maybe with a cocktail in your hand on a lovely Mediterranean island or a South Pacific island, something like that. So there we go. What do you think about those? They're pretty cool, aren't they? Out of some bits and pieces that were in my stash that I thought, what am I going to do with that? And they're interesting because they've got that translucent diffuser going on. And when you put them into a journal, it's going to change the story. So let me clear the decks, and I'll bring out the other one, and we'll put one into my journal. Okay, so let's have a little look at the one we made together, and you can see that when you put it onto a page in the journal, it changes how it looks because of what is shining through. And, you know, you put it onto a pink page like that, and it brings out the sunset a bit more. Or put it onto this background here. You know, if you slid it into the pocket there, it would shine the pink background through. So it kind of changes the story a little bit, doesn't it? You put it onto a white one, you know, it look quite nice in there, doesn't it? I think they're interesting because they change how they look when you put them on a certain page. Let's have a look at the one that I showed you earlier and put it onto a different page. See what it looks like. So if you put it onto this one here, that brings in the mauve into the composition. And if we put it onto just a book page, it's got text in it. That looks interesting. And if you put it onto a map, that looks pretty cool too, with the map being in the background as additional information. Or you could put it into a white background, and this one's got some gondolas in the foreground, and that looks fun. Now let's have a look at the one that I did first that was my inspiration. Now here it is, and it's a view of the Ponte Vecchio bridge in Florence. And you can see that I have stamped a cracked glass look, and now that's a stamp from All and Create that puts on this smashed glass. And I've actually stood at that exact window in the Academia Museum and looked out at that view. And when I saw that view, I thought, oh, I've stood at that window. And then I thought of the cracked glass and thought, I'll do something with that. And then I ended up printing out on my Dymo the statement that says, what a cracker view, because that's picking up on the cracked window, but that's also something that Australians would say about a view, saying, oh, that's a cracker view. So I really liked that, and I actually think that I'm going to put that in here and leave that in my journal because it's got sentimental value to me that I've stood there and I've looked at the view, and it wouldn't matter that the glass was broken because the view is so spectacular. So that was that one. So the next one I did was of a window, and I found this image in a book that I've got, and the shutter on the window was all the way down. So I cut out a portion of the shutter and moved it up and glued it onto the back, and then stamped on that same broken glass one I stamped on a ticket stamp that's basically got 5 stars and a ticket and then a registration number, as if this was an old-fashioned ticket office, and I stamped box 2431 on it. And you can see that that smudged a little bit, and that's because I actually stamped it onto the paper, and I did it in permanent ink, and I left it for quite a while, but when I put the glue stick on it, it still smudged it slightly, and I didn't like that. It was a bit out of focus. So after I glued the page together, I actually went over the top of it with the Sharpie and fixed it up a little bit, but you can see in the background it's still a bit smudged. And then I stamped out a few tickets and put them down the bottom as if there'd been tickets dropped on the floor. And it had that old-fashioned feel to it, as if it's closed and it's been damaged and no one's using it anymore. So I just clicked out now online, as if the ticket office is closed and everything's online. Now this is one of those ones that I forgot to glue the back on first. And you can see that this was the page in the book and it had greenery on the background. I've just left it because it would have been too hard to then cut it out and cover it after I'd stuck it on. And so I just got a piece of paper and stuck it down as a journaling spot. I think the first one I forgot to do it as well. Let's have a look. Yes, I did. I forgot to do it there. But I didn't mind this one because I think you could write here in a black pen and it would be fine. Just a tip to glue that piece of paper on first. So that was my next one. That's a bit of a fun one. The ticket booth that's closed down. The next one is, you can tell it's got an Italy theme, and it's because I got it out, most of them out of a book on Italy. This one here, this is similar to what I did with the one we did today. And it's got a view of a dome, and I'm not sure which city it is because there's lots of domes in Italy. It could be Rome, it could be Florence, it could be lots of places. But I cut out some of the background and tore the sky like I did with you. And on the back, you can see that I forgot to do this section, but then I remembered for the next bit. So it doesn't really matter. And then I've just stuck on a little piece of washi onto this one because I thought that the label needed some sort of backdrop because the vegetation was very prominent. And it says, spot the unexpected. So it's a little bit like as if you're walking along a track that's got vegetation everywhere and you turn the corner and then the next minute, bam, there's a big dome right in your view and you weren't expecting it. So that's that one. And the last one was my least favorite actually, and it was of a block illustration. It's like a graphic, and I thought I'd try something a little bit different. It's just not my favorite, and that's why I think the photographic landscapes work a little nicer. But you can see that I have cut the beach out of this one, so you don't have to cut the sky out all the time. You can cut out different portions, and there it is. It's out of a magazine. And so there's the bit that I cut out of there, and you can see that it was a light colour. So when I was flicking through the magazines looking for images, I was looking for blocks of light or white that I could cut out of the image to do this process. So you can see on the back I remembered that one. I've just dotted on a little bit of Sharpie for sand. And I've done a little bit of pen work on them. So I'm not sure whether you noticed in this one, I went around some of the information where there were shadows with some Sharpie pen work. And I think that on this one, the pen work is what saved it. I put some crosshatch onto it for shadows and some dots and some shapes and things like that. And I think that that helped. And this one says color capturing creation. And I just thought that that was a good sentiment for that it's such a bright composition. The colours are picking up on how beautiful creation is. Okay, so I put one into my journal and I'm happy with it there actually. I quite like that one. A few other ones would be good in this journal, but this one is going in because it has sentimental reasons for me as well. So there you go, there's my make for the weekend, and I've called it my translucent journaling cards, and they were fun to make. They're a little bit different, and using up something in my stash that I didn't even know I had, and coming up with something fun and new. Have a little bit of a play with this. When you're flicking through your magazines now, if you see something that lends itself to this process, I'm sure you'd be able to pick up some clear plastic somewhere that you could try this process, and let me know in the comments whether you like the project or whether you want to give it a go. If you like the video today and doing something new, I'd love it if you could give the video a thumbs up and maybe even a hype if it's up your alley. And if you're not subscribed, think about subscribing to the channel. That would be wonderful. And I hope you all have a fabulous weekend playing with something fun and new. And I will see you all again next week with another project. Bye for now.